Silver Doctors live on air. We are live on air. It is Friday, the 21st of February. It is 11:01 a.m. This is Silver Doctors Live. We are live on air. My name is Paul Half Dollar Eberhardt, and I am joined by my co-host here, Mike. How you doing today, Mike? Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you as well, my friend. I am doing excellent. Excited to be back for another live stream. And as always, there's more than enough stuff to talk about. So we're going to make this one an enjoyable moment in time. So let's do that.
We are. I mean, it's so hard to keep up with this stuff because I was talking about in this article that I put up this morning, I was like, way back on February 9th, it's like so much stuff is happening every single day with this development status. Like, you think about 2 weeks ago was a long time in the development of this outbreak thing, right?
Yeah, this health scare is the real deal. And so it's once again, just following the alternative media space, there's more and more question marks being brought out as to how it originated, why it's here, and what it's going to ultimately transition us to. And the interesting part is that we were talking about this well in advance. Like by putting on those hats in the form of conspiracy theorists, we were actually giving people heads up as to what this was all about well before everybody else started chiming in. So, Mr. Abdallah, we do a good job of delivering real truth that ends up actually being factual in a sense.
That's right. And we're going to put those hats on today because in the fourth thing that I want to talk about, we might have to put them on. So I'm going to put mine on anyway when we get to the fourth point.
I'll join you.
But let's take a moment to welcome everybody in the chat, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We do appreciate it. You want to give a couple shout outs there, Mike?
I will. We got Arch Stone says, go ahead, I'm ready. We got from I Jizzle, Gary D, we got Chris, we got Fred, Luke Gritz, David, Rolf, Dr. Collapse. So we got a few people tuning in. So appreciate you guys for taking time to join us. And as always, if you got thought, let us know in the chat. And then we're going to try to hold off on taking calls until we get through a couple key points. And then we'll open up as we get towards the end of our live stream today. So hold those calls, hold those thoughts, and we'll definitely get with you.
Yes, and there's a lot of information today. So if we go over a little bit, we'll go over a little bit. So people who want to call in, we're taking calls. We're going to go over a few points first, point by point, and after each point, we'll take some calls, right?
Yes, sir.
So let's start with this, Mike. Here's just the latest Johns Hopkins tracker, 76,787. That's from 10:33, so it's a little bit old.
Yeah.
But just kind of what I want to start out with today is, the economic contagion is going to be spreading much faster than the actual outbreak, much faster than the pandemic, than the epidemic. The economic contagion is about to be spreading very, very fast here. And I put up this little article this morning on Silver Doctors, and I want to bring up, I brought up this article on Silver Doctors, and I figured it out to only one tab, so I don't get the music playing in my ears right now, Mike. But I want to bring up this article that I put on Silver Doctors this morning, and I want to highlight a couple things here using this one example. There are 0 cases in the state of New York, right? And this is interesting because I don't know if you remember this or not, but a few shows ago, we talked about this, and actually we put up an article about this on Silver Doctors on the 9th of February. That's why I say it seems so long ago, right?
Yeah.
But the article that we put up said, early coronavirus contagion, New York City Chinatown restaurants tourism sales plunge. So this was, coming up on 2 weeks ago now, right?
Yeah.
And if we scroll down a little bit, here's reporting from today. This is reporting from today. So I want to highlight a couple things because it's back in the news again. And this is from CNN. And I just want to bring one thing to your attention. Chinese restaurants are hurting tremendously. So we're still talking about Chinatown, and we're still talking about New York. So just listen to this one little thing right here. On a normal day, we have around 100 tables. I don't think that's a lot for a restaurant, but I don't know. Maybe it's a lot for them. But just follow the logic here. On a normal day, we have around 100 tables a day. Right now, for a full day, we can get 20 to 30 tables. 20 to 30 tables. So right now we're suffering a 70 to 80% loss of business. 70 to 80%. There's not one single case anywhere in New York. Chinatown is suffering. People don't want to go to Chinatown. They don't want to go to Chinese restaurants. They don't want to spend their money out there. So here's the question that I have for you, Mike. This has already been going on for a couple weeks now, arguably for a month. If business is down 80%. How many months are going to go by while they can keep that business afloat, Mike?
They won't be able to go a month, more than likely, because I'm assuming they're already probably heavily leveraged in debt just based upon normal operations. And so I think that's where, Bill Holter, who's always been known for talking about the credit freeze. And so we're going to see a debt meltdown because of the inability for debtors to meet their obligations and just paying back some of the things they owe, as well as the inability to probably extend their credit line for the next month if they're not up to date with their current expenditure. So it may not go out beyond a month for a lot of small businesses.
Yes. And, it actually looks like a nice restaurant in the picture there that I had up. But, so this is New York City. And this is about to so this is what I'm saying when I say that the economic contagion is spreading even faster. Because this is, where there's arguably not that many cases of coronavirus yet. And there's none in the state. And all of a sudden you're about to have these imminently, right? Because, it's already been going on for a month. So that's just point number one there, just about the effects on Main Street. And think about how many different places there's Chinatowns, right? Because it's not just New York City where there's a Chinatown, right?
Every major metropolitan area has their own area where it's been heavily populated by the Asian population. So,
And it's more than just the restaurant, right? Because if the restaurant is down 80%, then the people that bring them their food, then they're not bringing them as much food, which means that they're not selling as much, right? So this is ripple effects all the way around. I said this morning in the article that I put up there that I don't think anywhere on earth is going to be spared from this. So that's just point number one. So if you want to take a call or anything, or if you had anything else to add on to that.
No, so I will. So looking into the chat, so I'm trying, as you're speaking, I'm doing a little interaction with the chat, share some thoughts and whatnot. And so low blood pressure mentioned that in his area, the Chinese restaurants, they don't really have a heavy population of workers from China. He said they're Guatemalans back in the kitchen. But think about beyond the food sector. I think majority of the population is not really in tune with the fact that this is a health scare that originated from the Asian area. So I was going to say that I'd imagine a lot of other non-restaurant style businesses that might be owned by people of Asian descent, which receive their primary inventory from that region, might end up seeing some slowdown because of the mere concern of contagion of certain items. Because once again, as I mentioned, I think it was last week or earlier this week, about how some people said that they're going to hold off from opening packages, anything that comes from Wuhan area or any area that's in quarantine. Like who knows what's in those packages or what's, when it comes to contact with those things. Out of sheer fear, a lot of people may not want to handle anything from that region at this current moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because that article, where I found that was in a CNN article, but the article was, what's spreading faster than coronavirus in the U.S.? Racist attacks and ignorant attacks against Asians. But CNN, they're stoking that fire. They want to stoke that fire. So that also goes back to what we talk about. They never let a good crisis go to waste. So they actually want this to happen, right? They want there to be fear and they want there to be uncertainty. And they're basically egging this on. They want this to actually increase, right? Because they thrive in that kind of chaos environment, which is sick in and of itself. So that's all I got there for just the New York City as it is. Very specific example. And it's a very specific example of how it's been going on for the better part of a month now. So
now on another note, looking at the chat, it looks like Dr. Collapse mentioned that, the mayor of Boston said you are a racist if you don't go to Chinatown and buy food. So, expect more probably local media sources highlighting those same things, which they'll probably attempt to encourage people to get back out there, like Dr. Claps was mentioning, that that's the real case in Boston. So I would imagine the mainstream media eventually will begin highlighting it, which will either bring negative attention because the question will be why people are not going there. Then they're going to mention the fact it's just because of this health scare, and then it's going to inform more people on the possible impacts as to why people may not really want to go down there, just because even though I personally would not change up my habit of going there, and if I enjoy Asian food, Asian cuisine, but at this current moment, it's just not really appealing, I imagine, for a lot of people that are informed.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when there's high concentrations where there could be the travel going back and forth. I mean, it's a fine line because, some of the fears are justified and some of the fears are unjustified.
Right. I would agree.
So let's just talk about this contagion a little bit more in the second topic that I want to bring up. And I guess that the word we could use would be called cancellations. So check this out. I'm going to put this up on the screen here. This is ICANN. And what ICANN is, it's like the internet something of names and something. Basically, it's a nonprofit global governing body for all things internet, right? So like internet names, domain name registration, all of these things that have to do with the wonderful World Wide Web. But here's something to think about. ICANN to hold the first ever remote public meeting. Hey, yay, we're going remote. It's a good thing. Well, not really, right? Because what they're saying is, the meeting scheduled for March 7th through the 12th makes the first time that we'll hold a public meeting with solely remote participation. And then it's announced today that the decision was made as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak considered a public health emergency by international concern by the World Health Organization. Here's the thing. That's in Mexico, Mike. That's in Mexico. There's not one place anywhere in Latin America. That conference was supposed to be in Mexico next month, the middle of next month, right? So here's what I want to talk about with that, right? Yeah. We hit on this many times already about the numerous sporting events that are already canceled. We talked about the World Mobile Expo in Barcelona, Spain, that was canceled. Now here's something else that's canceled. Check out what this article says, right? This meeting attracts attendees from 150 countries, right? 150 countries, thousands of attendees. So it's a big conference. It's nothing to say it's just peanuts, right?
Right.
Here's my point with that. My point is, just like the example we gave with the Chinese restaurant in Chinatown in New York City, think of all the plane tickets that are going to get canceled. Think of all the hotels that are going to get canceled. Think of all the restaurants that are not going to get eaten in, right? So this is just bad all the way around. And there's not one single case anywhere in Mexico, right? So you can say in New York, well, there's not one case in New York. There's plenty in the United States, but there's nothing in Mexico, right? I even saw propaganda saying, Latin America could be spared from this. I'm like, what are they talking about? That was in I think the Wall Street Journal talking about the economic ramifications. But this is why I bring this up, right? I bring this up because just today we're talking about cancellations. So just today, or actually yesterday, I'm sorry. So yesterday, the State Department issues an emergency alert about the coronavirus, an emergency alert, right? So we're trying to give out information about emergency alerts, and YouTube and Google's demonetizing us, right? Go figure that. But here's the thing. What they're saying is now they're adding Japan onto this. Right now, they're saying passengers on cruise ships, right? So U.S. citizens should reconsider travel by cruise ship to or within Asia. So anywhere within Asia by cruise ship. Now, what they have already said about China, right, is that it's been a level 4, do not travel to China, right? So they've already been in a do not travel there. Right now with Japan, they're just saying, don't take cruises around Asia. Here's my point with that. And here's why I bring this up, because I said this before on your channel on Rethinking the Dollar in that one show we did. Are they going to cancel the Olympics? Because it's building up to it, Mike. It's building up to it. You got the State Department saying, don't take a cruise anywhere in Asia. They're like one step away saying you might not want to travel to Asia. And what do we have coming up this July? We have the Summer Olympics in Tokyo.
So that's one of those things where it's kind of baked into the cake that there is no way to really control this current health situation, because someone in the chat referenced that the World Health Organization mentioned that it's mutating. So I'm trying to find that. But here's the thing is that the powers that be that unleashed it, they unleashed it intentionally for it to run its course. Now, to run the course to accomplish what? We can put the tinfoil hats on and go down that road if you want, or we can just say that Agenda 21 and all the Agenda 30, Agenda 40, Agenda 50, all the agendas that has to do with depopulation and the further spreading of their monetary tentacles over society for their own for a global world dominance is what the powers that be would want. This thing might continue to run on, but it's all strategically planned and done for this moment in time. And so, I don't think that's even conspiratorial to say that we were talking about this at the end of the last year of this current year being something that we would never forget. And we had no clue that it would be a health situation such as this. We were saying war or whatever. And that was just in January. So here we are now approaching the end of February. That means March is going to be a hell of a month.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So Things are getting canceled, and they're getting canceled further out. This is something for the middle of next month that's being canceled. And this is something in Mexico, not even in an impacted area. Obviously, because of the people traveling from all over the world, right? Yeah. But the point is, it's only getting worse from here. It is not getting better. We have not peaked in anything. Viral cases, economic ramifications, none of that. So let's go ahead and check in with the chat. And if you want to there, Mike, or see if we have a phone call.
Yeah, no phone calls as of yet, so we'll hold off. So in the chat, as always, highlight @SilverDoctors. We'll touch on it. And so here's another thing I want to throw out there to you. And so this is for all the viewers, as well as you, Mr. Half Dollar. Knowing that there's a continual crackdown on everything happening out east, therefore it's going to squeeze itself in eventually to this part of the world. Do you see yourself altering your plans for travel? Because I have a trip coming up. I would like to plan accordingly, but it's one of the things where I'm like, should I self-quarantine myself, or should I just go ahead and, act on faith and just do what I would normally do and just be a little bit cautious of, wearing a mask or something like that on a plane. But, what are your thoughts? I'm curious to find out from the audience, are you dialing back on your plans, or are you going to operate as normal and just, treat this as a flu type of situation until further notice, or what? I'm curious to find out via chat.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's something that we're going to have to consider as a family, because we moved a couple times over the last couple years, so any kind of vacations we've taken have been regional and localized, day trips mainly. So we're coming up on the point where we could have a vacation again, and we're going to have to reconsider that. Let's get this call.
All right, we do got a call. All right, here we go. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Robert from Florida.
Robert from Florida. How you doing, Robert? What's on your mind this afternoon?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people need to pay attention to, especially with this virus thing, me living in Florida, I see, when the hurricanes come, in any type of emergency situation, you have 3 stages. You have stage 1, which is pretty much everybody denying the fact that something's going to happen. Then you got stage 2, where you start to generally see some people kind of waking up and gradually start picking up supplies. And then you see stage 3, which is where everybody starts panicking. And right now, we're kind of in a stage 2 where you gradually are having some people starting to wake up and, maybe stock up on some extra medicine or food or stuff. And the big thing is, they try to say that there's 3 days worth of food at the store shelves, which is completely false. With on demand now, anytime a hurricane comes to Florida, those shelves are cleaned out in like 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, interesting. So we are in a preparation phase, and therefore, when it comes to the toiletries, the food, all the small items that we have not really appreciated having access to continually, those are things that people should really be focusing on, huh? Because you heard about the toilet paper truck being robbed, and I think it was in China or something like that.
Yeah, so 600 rolls of toilet paper. That's absolutely ridiculous, and that should really open people's eyes to really kind of what's going on when trucks are being robbed for toilet paper. There's quite a bit more going on behind the scenes than what is really being made to be.
Yeah, good point. Good point, my friend. I appreciate the thoughts there shared with the audience. I appreciate you.
All right, you guys take care.
Thank you. Be good.
Yep, thanks for that call. We appreciate him calling in and sharing that. And I would agree with absolutely everything you said. I think that's absolutely right. Those are all great points. And I think that we are at the exact point where he said that we are, which is slowly but surely people are waking up. Now, you got the one-offs, right? Like the N95 masks. I was in Walmart yesterday, not a single N95 mask anywhere in Walmart to be found. Online, they're still going for an arm and a leg. So, it's started a little bit in a couple things, but once it starts in earnest, I mean, it's like we said, I can't remember if it was on Rethinking the Dollar on Silver Doctors, but people kill each other for Popeye's chicken sandwiches. Man, it's going to be brutal once they start panicking for supplies here.
Yeah, and that's so okay, here's another thing out there. So if we're in phase 2 out of the 3 stages, stage 1 is basically ignorance, stage 2 is awakening, stage 3 is panic. So right now we're in that 1 to 2 phase. Will March be full-blown stage 2 as far as this outright awareness? People are like, I'm hearing about more stories. And so how it's not until something that comes across your focal point because it's something you either want or you're directly impacted by it, until that point you pay no attention to it. And so do you think that phase 2 of this upcoming month of March will be the time frame where people be like, hey, Like this could really be something that we should take serious. This could really be close to home, or do we still got some time, you think?
We might not have some time.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because I can't remember how many days they were talking about, but I think they were talking about infections are doubling like every 6 days.
Yeah.
So like if we talk about just the basic math, well, let's just call it every 7 days, then the infection rates are going to double throughout the month of March, right? And we still have another week before February is over with. Yeah. So, we could see, 5 doublings of cases within the month of March. So absolutely we could see it then.
Yeah. All right. So we have another caller. Let's see what we have here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Robert here in Lethbridge, Alberta. I've got a quick...
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Robert, for calling. What's in your mind?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. Do you remember right at the very beginning there was a ship off the coast of Italy that also had this virus on it? And then the last I heard, it was put out to sea to do some maintenance. I've not been able to find anything or about that ship since.
Ooh, me personally.
Say. Thanks.
Yo, I appreciate you. We'll touch on that. So thanks for calling in. All right, so a ship off the coast of Italy. Mr. Half Dollar, are you familiar with anything like that? I haven't been following the actual cruise lines myself, but are you familiar with that?
No, not that specific one, so I couldn't say anything one way or another, unfortunately. I appreciate the call, and I appreciate him bringing that up, so that's something we're definitely going to have to look into and bring up if it's appropriate. I've been watching more of the Diamond Princess than anything else, which is interesting. We can talk about that, too, if you want. Yeah. But, I don't know anything about that one.
So here, as I'm looking this up now, just typed in that health word along with cruise ship in Italy, and so here's Costa Cruises says passengers has common flu after 6,000 tours were held amid that health scare fears, and so it's something about Costa Cruises is that a passenger on board a cruise ship in Italy has been diagnosed with the common flu. Mm-hmm. And so it looks like the common flu was lumped in as a possible scare with that particular health situation we're referring to here. So that's the first thing that comes up, and that was January 30th. So not sure if there was actual cases of that health scare, actual word on that liner or another Italian liner. So
yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure one way or another, so we'll have to look into that. That'll be definitely something, because why is it dropped out of the news? 6,000 people. That's a lot of people. That's more than there are on the Diamond Princess. There were only like 3,700 on that one.
Yeah, and so and that was for what turned out to be a flu. But it's one of those things where could those symptoms have went dormant in the meantime? Because once again, initially it was like take 7 days, 14 days. Now it can be 30 days. And so once again, like you know where I stand as far as this being a self-activated bio tool. Yeah. And so I think it has it possibly has a remote control to it, hint 5G, but I'm gonna leave it alone. So anyway, we can keep rolling.
Okay. So next topic that I want to bring up, Mike, this one is kind of important because what I want to talk about is South Korea. We need to talk about South Korea for a minute. We need to talk about South Korea for a few different reasons. So the total confirmed in South Korea is 204, according to the 10:33 a.m. update at the Johns Hopkins University tracker. And, I'm going to share this link in the chat because I'm not sure if people know where to see this map, but I can see the search terms on Silver Doctors that people are trying to find this map sometimes. Because, CNN and all the mainstream media comes up, but they don't link to it ever, but I always link to it. It's a good little resource, even though I don't think that it's accurate and it's not updated enough. But here's my point. Just yesterday, there were like 102 cases, Mike, in South Korea. And today, there's 204.
Really? So that thing is spread,
that's not my point, though. My point, though. Here's what my point is. What are my points? Okay. Here are my points. 3 points about this. 1, we're going to get better information from South Korea. You would assume, right? You would assume we're going to get better information coming out of South Korea than information that's coming out of China. Therefore, granted, it's going to be highly propagandized, but it should be marginally better on net. So we need to watch South Korea because that's going to be important for learning more things about this. Point number 2. There's a lot of military, U.S. military in South Korea, Mike. There's like almost 23,500 U.S. soldiers in South Korea that have been there, basically, the number fluctuates a little bit, but basically since the Korean War, right? And we've stayed there ever since. So, my point is we have U.S. military posts all over South Korea and, tens of thousands of soldiers, right? So this is something that could have a backdoor channel into the United States, or at least into the United States military. So that's something to watch also. Then you want to bring something up?
Yeah. So this is probably not this all interrelated, but not necessarily a side spin. And so here's a great question that somebody threw out there in the chat, and I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but it's the idea of is there a particular ethnicity that happens to be impacted most? Because it's one of those things where if this is a strategically created bio tool, as I like to refer to it, is it targeting a certain gene pool or ethnic group itself, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it could be. Absolutely. I would not rule that out, in my opinion. And I say that because, I don't know where the human genome stands, but I'm pretty sure they've mapped out the entire human genome by now.
Yeah.
So if they've mapped out the entire human genome, you don't think that they can do genetic splicing to figure out, if you can go to, Los Angeles and have a designer baby and pick the eye color and the sex and all that stuff, then you can create viruses that target specific genes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So everything is fair game here. I don't think that's too far out at all.
Now, so with that being the case, that's not too far fetched of a subject matter. Now, how many people outside of Asian descent have actually contracted it? Is there we get numbers on who, how many, where, whatever? Are they only of the Asian descent pool according to statistics? Have they broken it down to that point?
Well, early on, they've been talking about not just Asian, but Asian males in general. So this is something that we're going to have to look a lot more closely about. Because it also...
Sorry, how about children? Has there been any cases in children?
Yeah, I don't. You put me on the spot. I don't know these answers.
No. So that's the thing. Here's the more questions that we have to ask ourselves amongst each other. Of course, the audience probably have those same questions, but once again, why is there no information going into greater detail on that same subject matter? Yes. Out of pure curiosity, to either calm the concerns about stuff that can happen here, as well as the rest of the world. Because how you're saying that there's no cases in Mexico, there's no cases in Africa. How about the cases that are there happen to be in that certain, ethnic gene pool itself, to where it may not impact locals or American, quote unquote American, Europeans, or whatever, African Americans. So those are just things that concern me. So I was just curious, throw it out there. Of course, we don't know. Nobody knows, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Except people who created it. But go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all valid points and good points. And I'm watching Mexico like a hawk for many reasons. And it's interesting because you don't hear a lot about that Uber driver right now, but just yesterday there was another suspected case of 2 people in a hospital in the state of Jalisco in Mexico, and this is not related to that Uber driver. This is somebody who traveled from China. And remember, there's no travel restrictions and there's no mandatory quarantine or anything between Mexico and China right now. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the 2 people, I cannot remember the ethnicity, but a 24-year-old and a 4-year-old.
So it's reported that they have symptoms, or they have the particular strand of that bio tool.
That they have symptoms, that they're waiting for the test results.
So they could have the flu and have the same symptoms of what I saw. One person said it was just they were coughing as if they felt like they were going to die, and that's how severe the coughs were. So assuming that's the leading indicator that there could be an issue, but that's also with the severe flu as well. So it's one of those things. I'm curious, just in curiosity, are those 2 individuals of Mexican descent, or are they of Asian descent? And then on top of that, why really announce that until it's confirmed that they have that particular strand of something that is a bio tool?
Yeah, those are all great points.
Just to keep the calm. Why would you, get the public all excited? There's 2 people in the hospital, they're coughing. Okay, there's probably thousands that's coughing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But the flip side of that, though, there's a flip side of that, and the flip side of that is to show that we're doing stuff and we're being proactive about it. So that's another flip side too, right? So hey, we got your back. Don't worry about it. Oh, that was nothing, but we took the proper action to make sure that it wasn't anything. So there's a flip side of that too.
Yeah. Now, okay. So sorry to interrupt. Here's another thought. So Mr. Clayton in the chat mentions that the cruise ship proved it doesn't just affect Asians, and so
Great point. Great point.
So that's one of the things of, once again, we haven't really seen, we haven't really seen anything to say that they don't have to be, those individuals on the cruise ships, they still could be of Asian descent. Like, we haven't actually seen pictures I haven't seen pictures of all those people that are infected, because once again, we're getting numbers. We're not getting, men, women, or whatever. We're getting numbers. And so once again, those people could be of Asian descent, like not saying like directly from China, but they could be from the surrounding areas that I would also say could be, lumped into that pool of just the Asian region, which could be impacted by this. So we don't know. Officially is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen a couple people from the ship, but definitely we don't know like the details that you're talking about. Absolutely. So those are great points. Staying on South Korea here for another minute, Mike. So point number one was we're going to be getting better info, hopefully. Point number two is there's a lot of U.S. military stationed in South Korea. Point number three, we've been talking about the supply chain disruptions for a couple weeks now. This is SK Hynix right here. I don't know if you can see that name. Hold on a sec. It's not going to zoom in on the letters. Oh, there we go. SK Hynix. SK Hynix. So XK Hynix this is desktop RAM. Here's 4 gig sticks, 16 gigs of RAM. So SK Hynix is one of the top RAM producers in the world. And I'm going to bring up this little article right here, but just to make a couple comments on it. Zero Hedge was spinning this as, key Apple supplier Hynix tells 800 workers to stay home after a trainee contracts the virus. Yes, they're a key Apple supplier, but the overall point is they're not just a key Apple supplier. They're just a memory chip manufacturer in general. That's absolutely vital to everything that uses RAM, right? Everything. This is not just going to affect Apple. This is affecting any microelectronics that uses RAM. My point is, if people are thinking that South Korea, as we were talking about on Rethinking the Dollar, South Korea and Japan and these other technological manufacturing powerhouses are going to step up and fill in the gap that China's left with their void, it's already starting to see problems. That's point three.
So when it comes to the some of the key specifics of items that are going to become scarce, that's the reason why he's referring to RAM, because for those that may not know, Mr. Half Dollar is a computer expert. So so his initial thought months and months ago was like, hey Mike, as stuff hits the fan, the small computer parts and as well as the older desktop models are going to carry a premium as people look to get back into older things outside of this new stuff. So that's why we're talking about RAM, because Mr. Half Dollar is a computer connoisseur.
And RAM's a commodity, right? So that's the whole point there. The last time I bought 16 gigs of RAM, I bought it for $80 for actually 32 gigs, because it was $20 for a stick, and I got 4 sticks, so I got 8 gig sticks, $20 a pop, so I got 32 gigs for $80. And right now 16 gigs all day long is at least $55 at least. So, and these are prices just going up in general. So like, my whole point to that is people are going to say, well, the impacts are still unknown, or well, it's got to take some time. No, I'm saying that we are already seeing it, because I look at these prices every single day. So we're already seeing the ramifications right now.
And so I think this current month coming up, we'll probably see a clampdown or pinch. And I was also talking about certain major retailers like your Walmarts, your Targets, and whatever probably major food chains you guys have in your area will probably start rationing certain items within their store, saying that you're limited to 1 or 2 as the health concerns pick up, to where like right now could be a 2-week window, 3-week window for those that have not been probably accumulating a little bit more of things that you will need, whatever that is for your household, because eventually retail stores will have to start clamping down as shipments do not come in as often, as well as the shelves becoming a little bit bare. So that's something I'm anticipating definitely before middle of March, hearing something about Walmart saying, certain items 1 per person or 1 per family or something like that.
And think about this. When the caller earlier, I think his name was Robert, but don't hold me to that. But when he called earlier and was talking about if we're in stage 2, Stage 2 is not just going to be about food and, medical supplies and medicine. it's basically going to be an awakening that whoever has like expertise in whatever it is that they're experts in, they're going to be starting to buy extras, right? So like with me, I bought a little bit of extra, RAM and a little bit of extra, solid state hard drives and things like that because I know what's going on and I can see it, and I was right with that, right? Yeah. So the point is that it's going to be turbocharging into stage 3 because people are going to front run it. So they're saying, oh my goodness, I'm seeing prices going up. I need to go buy before it goes up even further. And then it's self-fulfilling and it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
Next thing I want to talk about, Mike, I got to bring out the tinfoil. You ready for the tinfoil?
Go ahead. I'll join you so you don't feel lonely.
Okay, so this is my tinfoil hat. So for people who are just seeing this for the first time, we got tinfoil hats now, and Mike's, yours is really, really nice. I like yours.
Thank you, sir. It's actually a baseball cap wrapped in foil, but I didn't think about adding antennas and like that.
Well, I mean, you got to confuse the signals that are going in trying to get in there. So
yeah.
So here's the thing that I want to bring up, Mike. So this comes from my article from this morning that I wrote. So check this out, Mike. At the very bottom, something I threw in there. Iran confirms 18 total coronavirus cases and 4 deaths. Iran's been totally off the radar, and now they have more deaths in Iran than anywhere else in the world outside of China. Here's why I want to throw that out, Mike. We were almost on the brink of World War III last month with Iran now, weren't we? We've been sanctioning the crap out of Iran, and one of the things that happens with those sanctions is they have lost access to medical supplies, equipment, and pharmaceuticals. And now there's a critical worldwide shortage of medical supplies, equipment, and pharmaceuticals. So here's the tinfoil hat aspect. Regime change without a shot even needed to be fired, Mike.
Yeah. So yeah, when I hear that, first thing came to mind. And so for those that are not aware, when you put the hats on, that means that you're able to go well beyond rational thought. So let's go out there a little bit. And so when hearing about this situation with Iran, I'm thinking like, okay, they went from shooting missiles to U.S. bases and us thinking that was going to be the beginning of a global world war to all of a sudden having a world situation, but it happens to be with a health concern. And so is this the type of thing that can force all governments? Like, is it possible that all governments could have probably signed up for this? Because if you go to that, just diving further, that event the event 201 and hearing about all the people that were reportedly there were a lot of head of states, governments, pharmaceutical companies, and people that I would imagine probably signed off on this whole event. And so what's the likelihood that possibly all governments knew that this was coming and they all, like as I always mention, everything we're experiencing, in my opinion, is all a part of the monetary reset or reboot to whatever is going to come after this stuff, plays through. And so what's the likelihood that all governments low-key signed off on this as a way of, really diverting attention from the primary issues, which are the crumbling economy due to too much debt and all that stuff like that. And so now every government has the right to begin creating or allowing their central banks to ramp up debt and trying to really get the last little bit of life out of this current system before the switch is flipped on to that next system. So what's the likelihood that Iran and U.S. and all these governments are working together for this reboot, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know if Iran would be working together with it. I would take a slightly different angle, but still, it's a good nonetheless. And I want to bring up something that I just saw come through in the chat, talking about and it was talking about the virus, and I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was talking about the virus was the virus has been there since before the missile strikes, right? So that was the point in the chat. I can't remember who said it. But here's what I want to say. Yes, the missile strike, the virus was there before. But what a coincidence that, the one place outside of China that all of a sudden too, is Iran, right? What a coincidence that is. Here's my point with that. Because what is the problem with Iran? They won't fall in line, right? So that's why I'm taking that different angle. They won't fall in line. So when you say bring governments to their knees, that's a way to bring the Iranian government to their knees and make them fall in line. Because, What did they do during the sanctions? They sold oil and they got gold with it, and then they used the gold to buy stuff they couldn't get from other countries because they were denied access to the SWIFT system, right? So you can bring Iran down to its knees by unleashing this thing in there. That's what I'm saying with that. So what about Venezuela, right? What about Venezuela? We've been trying to put Guaido in there for a long time. So is that going to be your first case in Latin America? If it is, Mike, we're needing to make bigger tinfoil hats. Let me tell you about that. Because Venezuela is also one of those countries that's not on that central banking, Western denominated and controlled central banking model. So those are my thoughts there. Any more thoughts on that?
Yeah. And so Italian G referenced that Iran is selling oil to China. And so once again, this could be a great method. I mean, I hate to say the word great, but this could be a useful tool to really force countries to rethink their business partners, as well as put additional scare into the public, in a sense to where if your government can't take care of you, then it'll make it easier for the people to stand up and say, we need change. And so that also plays well into all those countries that are on the sanction list right now.
Or who needs the people to stand up and say, we need change if they're all dead? Right? I mean, if you have mass population die-offs, then it doesn't matter at that point, right? So if you lose 25% of your entire population, which I'm not saying is unrealistic, if this thing is as severe and as dangerous as they say it is, in a place that is severely underprepared when it comes to medical response.
Right. Now, here's another thing to consider. Also, back to the point I had hinted at earlier, we don't know if the people that are impacted are not of Asian descent. Are they Iranians, like purebred Iranians, or because there's no doubt, there's heavy Asian influence in that region due to all the business deals and all the, the restaurants. I'm assuming there's a Chinatown and, and Tehran. So once again, are those individuals that have it, are they Iranian descent, or are they, visitors on tourist visas from the Asian area? So once again, we need to find those. We need to really, hear those details to find out, is it still limited to that certain ethnic group, or is this something that's available for everybody to actually come up with?
Great points. So we will be monitoring that now too. So we got to add Iran to the list of stuff to watch. We got to add South Korea to the list of stuff to watch. And that's already to the U.S., Mexico, and China. So, I mean, it's just like, and that's the point, right? Pretty soon there's just going to be information overload because it's going to just go crazy. And that's probably when we enter that phase 3. And it could be as early as next week, seeing as how fast this thing doubles.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this off now. So I think that's the tinfoil usage for today, but it's valid. And it's fine, because that's the very first thing that I think about when I see that is, my goodness, from nothing to now there's more deaths there than anywhere else. What a coincidence, right?
Yeah. And so Rob B in the chat says Iranians are of Asian descent. So, I don't know the full, whatever. So I'll take it at that. But, the closer you are to that region, the greater the chance of you having some type of gene pool from historical standpoints in your blood, in your system. So I'll take it at that. But we'll see.
So yes, great points, Mike. All great points. Now, so we've been talking here for a while, but I still want to bring up a couple more topics. So hopefully everybody, will afford us this time here today and stay tuned in and hit that thumbs up button because that really helps us if you can. Yeah. You want to check into the chat because what I want to start talking about now are the markets and gold and silver. So
so we have. Let me see any thoughts. It says you guys are going on to run out of foil, and so we actually have a call. So we missed a couple calls. Wanting to get to those thoughts. So let's take this call.
Okay.
And then we'll keep moving. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey there. How you doing?
North Carolina. I was just wanting to talk about a theory I'd seen on Facebook. The guy theorized that the fecal oral transmission is probably one of the greatest threats. He said that countries that have low sanitation are more prone to get the virus, and he kind of cited like the apartment building, where everybody got infected, even though they weren't in the same rooms or anything of that nature, because like China doesn't have traps on their plumbing and stuff.
Yeah. Interesting.
And,
okay. So you said so.
As far as the, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, as far as the genetic factor of it, the virus seems to connect to the ACE2 of the, and some people have more, like Asians do.
you know, and it goes down like African Americans have less than Asians, and the people that have the least are like Europeans. But I really don't know if that's going to play a factor in it.
Yeah. So I know like Chris Martinson has done a great job breaking down certain things from a scientific and bio type of standpoint there. So apart from that information he shares, that's the only person out there really giving things that people can understand. So we're going to find out, unfortunately, but it's one of the things where I would hate for it to get to the point where it becomes a real problem in this country before more of this information comes out and becomes prevalent for us to really find out now if we could. But I don't think that's what they want us to do.
What's worrying a bit about this country is that we've had 15 cases for well over a week. I mean, are they reporting? I've seen posts where people are saying that they do not have the test kits, like in Philadelphia and stuff like that. And if they don't have the test kits, then they can't confirm that it is the COVID-19 virus. They might just say it's the flu. Right.
And then on top of that, I mentioned, I think last week, about hearing a story about, the actual kit that was being used up to some point was actually not up to par with the actual virus itself. So even the kits they were using a couple weeks ago, before they fully knew everything about what's currently going on now, was outdated. So a lot of people could have been tested with that kit and given clearance, but yet ultimately, because that kit may not be up to snuff, end up actually having something if it comes down to that.
False negatives anyways. And the virus has a asymptomatic stage of up to 24 days, where you don't have anything other than maybe sniffles or something like that. So they're not testing those people. I mean, it's just troubling.
Yeah, very much so. So I appreciate your call, my friend. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, be good.
We appreciate him calling us, and it's weird because, when I was working under contract for the CDC and the National Institutes of Health, that was my job, right? Is to communicate to the public what is going on and try to explain it to people. But that's a good point that he brings up there, because and so my point by saying that is because sometimes the conversations can get a little bit uncomfortable. So, but he's bringing up a good point. Fecal matter, right? Fecal matter, poop, right? That's what we're talking about. And that's why I brought it up on Monday about California is just going to get obliterated by this thing. Because remember, they were already having problems with hepatitis A, right? Hepatitis A spreads through fecal matter, right? Through unsanitary conditions like that. So, what we're hearing about is that this thing spreads through, sneezing and mucus and nasal fluids and things like that. But we're also hearing that it could have spread through blood. I'm not sure. Could it spread through fecal matter? How many different ways can this thing spread? It's like there's no bodily fluid that this thing can't spread through. My goodness, it's going to be devastating.
Yeah. And so another thing here that I don't think we've probably touched on is the fact that nations, especially Russia, which is the bordering country right above it, has cut off access to where the people from China are not able to come into Russia. So that right there is a major nail in their plans, because all the backdoor deals, we got the BRICS, the AIB, all those negotiations now stands to be put on hold as this health things, continues to escalate. So I don't think, China doesn't want to be cut off from the world, but yet it's either they chose to release this thing to do it to themselves for some greater cause that we don't know about, or it was done to them and strategically placed there to cause all this disruption to lead us to that next world order or something like that. So yeah, either one of those or somewhere far left field is the case, I believe.
Yep. Great points. All valid points. The next one that I want to bring up, I actually, this is going to be awkward because
all right, watch this. So before we get to that, let's take this call and then we'll get to that one.
Okay.
Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Is this Mike?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
And going. Can you hear me now?
I can. Go ahead. What's your name?
Ron.
Ron, how you doing, Ron? What's on your mind?
Oh, good. Just want to let you know you guys are doing a terrific job getting information out there. But
thanks, sir.
What I wanted to talk about was, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead. We hear you good.
Okay, I work in a hospital. I'm in the critical care unit. And basically, we don't have any of those things that they're diagnosing. They're diagnosing everybody with just pneumonia.
And so in your area, or from what you're hearing about some of the things?
Well, I work in a hospital.
Yeah.
And my daughter works in a hospital in Pittsburgh. And so
they're not diagnosing people with that coronavirus. They're just they're basically saying that they probably just have pneumonia because we don't even have test kits.
Mike, ask them. What kind of extra preventative measures are they taking in the hospital?
So,
are they doing things differently?
Yeah. Okay. So I hear Mr. Halfdollar through my earpiece. He said, "What type of preventative measures from what you guys are actually preparing for are you guys taking right now? Anything in particular that
they have not given us? Yeah, they haven't given us any preventive measures. All they're basically saying is if you travel to China, ask people if they travel to China. That's it."
Right. So just one simple question. So more than likely, if you are concerned about your privacy as well as you've been treated like, in a very inhumane way, you might say, "No, I didn't go to China," knowing you did, or something like that. So it's one of the things where people will eventually probably not want to let people know they came from China or was in contact with someone from China, or so. Going by trusting people's word of mouth will probably become a problem pretty soon.
Yeah, we're breaking up here. I'm out in the country here, but thanks. It's nice talking to you.
Thanks, my friend. Thanks for calling in. All right, Mr. Halfdollar.
Yeah, I mean, they're not obviously, assuming taking that at face value, working in a hospital, not really doing anything, that we're not ready for this, Mike. We're not ready for this at all. That's the message there. Yeah. So here's just the first point about gold. The first point is get ready for the anti-gold propaganda. And it came out this morning. The dollar has no equal. There is no equal to the dollar, Mike. There's not one single thing in this entire world that's equal to the dollar. So the dollar has no equal for investors sheltering from the outbreak. Hello. That's called gold and silver, and it's actually superior to the U.S. dollar. But this is the kind of stuff that we're going to start seeing. And this is from, I can't highlight it because this is actually a picture that I took. Because remember, I'll bring up the actual article from Bloomberg, but remember, I've reached my limit on the amount of articles that I can view, and $50 ain't paying for a subscription, Bloomberg. So here's the actual article right here, and you'll see this pop up in a minute. So there we go. I'm not allowed. I'm denied. But this is what we're going to be seeing because obviously, gold is moving, right? Gold is broke out above 1650 this morning. We're sitting above 1640 right now. Silver broke out above 1850 this morning. We peaked out at 1862 and we're sitting about 1846 right now, right? So the metals are in fact moving. And why are the metals moving? The metals are moving because we're in the middle of the economic collapse, right? That's why the metals are moving because, people are going to need to start looking at safe haven investments. It's just a slow market realization that even if the Fed keeps these markets propped up, it's game over either way.
Yeah. Now, the good news to that, when you mentioned that, I got very excited because I'm thinking wow, that is great promotion for those that know what an actual dollar is and what it means, and the fact that the dollar, according to the way they're describing it, it happens to be our national currency from the standpoint of something issued from the Federal Reserve System. But for those that know the true nature of what a dollar is, it's a measurement of weight. And so for those that know what it means, they basically gave some promotion to the alternative media crowd of those that accumulate weight, the importance of getting your weight up. So I'm excited to hear that the dollar there's no comparison to the dollar because you're true. There are no comparisons to actual tangible weight that you can hold in your hand and all that good stuff like that. So I'm excited for the dollar in that regard there.
Yes. So the last point that I wanted to bring up today is to counter a point that you made yesterday. Because you made a very good point yesterday, but I need to add something on to it. And I didn't add something onto it yesterday when we were chatting on rethinking the dollar. Yeah. So here's what you said yesterday, and I'm paraphrasing, so excuse me if I'm wrong on this, but you were talking about, the price is going to go up or down, but that's just what it's denominated in, right? So whether it's 1650 today and it goes down to, 1598 tomorrow, as long as you got the weight is what's the constant. But here's what I wanted to add on to that. And it's not that you missed it or forgot it. It's just that, however, right? Yeah. If you believe that there's an active price suppression being engaged upon by governments and central banks to actively suppress the prices of gold and silver, then yes, the weight is the weight and the price is going to fluctuate. But if there is active active price suppression going on, which I think there is, market manipulation, gold market rigging, all that stuff, then that means we're undervalued. So there is going to be a capital gain increase based on the fact that once these markets really start moving and they lose control of these markets, there's going to be a massive readjustment in price higher. That's even without a reset. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
I would agree with that 100%. So for those that actually hold physical weight, at whatever point we reach to after all this smoke blows over, depending on how devastating it will be probably a game changer, as I'm assuming that's what it's intended to do. The price of a metal in whatever currency will ultimately be a lot higher, just because we're going to run into inflation pretty soon, it's going to become obvious that inflation is present. Because as a result of all the stuff going on, the economies will crumble. Therefore, monetary and fiscal intervention must take place. And therefore, the winners of this, in a monetary sense, will be those that hold weight. And so the goal is for no one to prosper during this reboot. And so they're going to tax, metals and anything that holds value throughout a collapse excessively in this next paradigm. And so it's one of the things you will be taxed heavily, but I would rather be taxed on having something than lose everything not having none. Mm-hmm. So me personally, once again, you'll preserve yourself by sticking to monetary constants, which are things that are on the periodic table themselves, whether it's like direct ownership of them. And you might want, if you want to hold some derivatives or claims to, actual oil or whatever with some miners or whatever, do whatever you do. It's better to have something physical that you own or have access to immediately in cases that we're experiencing now, I believe.
Yes. And remember, $50 not saying to do this, right? But, I'm just saying a private transaction between two individuals is nobody's business, Mike.
Yeah, I would agree. And so watch this. Let's take this call real quick. So hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello? Anybody there? Going once? Going twice? All right.
I think the whole crypto thing is interesting because one of the things that crypto did was, get people to think about what is money and what is not money. And you said this like maybe 6 months ago, but you said, I think people are going to start moving into palladium and platinum because they have all of the qualities of money.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think that's interesting because, I believe that they let the cryptos run at the end of 2017 there just to keep attention off of gold and silver. Part of the reason why they let them run, in addition to the push to digital. But my point is, it's not going to be confined that inflation around, and that safe haven bid is going to go into other things other than just gold and silver this time around because of the fact that the four precious metals hold all of the qualities necessary to be money.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, or did we have a call? Or
no, we did not know. So yeah, someone attempted to call in, but we probably have broken communication. So
okay.
Caller, if you're calling in now, feel free to just ask in the chat, and we'll touch on it. We're about to shut the phone lines down as we get ready to dial back. But go ahead.
That's right. So just the point is, my point overall with that is there is massive potential for capital appreciation. So even if a person does the right thing, pays tax on it, and because they got a monster box of Eagles, and I'm just giving out an example here. So this is just an example. So let's say you got a monster box of Eagles, right? So you got 500 Eagles, and right now you can buy it for $10,000, and you got to get the you got to pay the tax man. But if you sell it for $100,000, and I'm just throwing examples out there, right? So don't say $50 said you could sell a monster box of Eagles for $100,000. I'm just giving an example. Right now, if it costs $10,000, if you sell it for $100,000 and you got to pay $20,000 worth of tax, well, you still made out like a bandit.
Yeah.
That's just something to think about there because here's the point, right? If you're paying more tax because you're making more, that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah. Very true. And it is at this point, it's more so of like, what are you willing to lose by staying in this old paradigm? And so the more you have invested in it, as far as all the products they spun out to us throughout the past decades, the more you stand to lose. And so just being practical and unconventional, removing yourself as much as you can from the system and eliminating your exposure to risk by all the counterparties that have ownership rights to certain things that you think you own as well, the less you get involved in that system, the less likely you are to suffer the maximum pain. Even though there will be discomfort, it won't be outright pain. And on another note, just share a little quick story. My wife was speaking with someone who's a senior citizen, and she was telling me this story. And so the young lady mentioned, or older lady mentioned, that during this last little hiccup of the downturn of the markets, she lost, 3.8 million. And she said she never fully recovered, but she said a lot of her friends, she's a baby boomer at that. She said a lot of her friends, unfortunately, lost that much or more, and they committed suicide. And so when I heard that, it was like, wow, man, we forget about the fact that with those financial digits, we associate our dreams, our hopes, our aspirations. We summarize it by saying we've worked hard for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or I invested smartly in all these things I was told to do. But we often forget about the emotional attachment with accumulating a number. Mm-hmm. And if that number done in digits or in paper form is subject to all the things going on now, and if it happens to go down or disappears, think about all the emotional heartbreak where people will say, my life is no longer worth living, So yeah, I see a lot more of that happening with this baby boomer generation, because they were promised certain things, but yet it was all a lie at the end of the day. So something that really touches my heart.
Yeah, and we need to, it does, because it's going to be tragic, because those stories are only going to increase from here on out. And, we need to understand that it's not just the Fed, it's not just the government, it's both of them, right? Get into the stock market, get into stocks. We're not going to pay you a penny on your interest, so we're going to make you go into those risk assets. Mm-hmm. And then, the government dishes out the propaganda and the lies and the deceit. So, how do you counter that, right? You believed in something your entire life, and like you said, it turned out to be a lie. Turned out to be a lie.
Tragedy.
Yep, tragedy. So don't sign us off with a tragedy, Mike. Let's go ahead and dial it back and sign us off here. I'll let you have the last words for today and sign us off with something good.
All right, as always, it's one of those things where there's only so much we can control, and so the things we can control happens to be, at the core essence of it, your spiritual nature. And so I don't personally take the fear approach towards what's going on. I try to remain optimistic, because I believe that all this is for a greater good, however it plays out. But yet, remain encouraged through all this. Help family members out more during this time frame, because they need a source of encouragement, and it only comes from those that stay in tuned, such as the people that are tuning in now. So as always, stay prayed up, and of course, take practical steps according to your knowledge base. And other than that, let's just pray for a better day tomorrow, and pray for our leadership, whether we agree or disagree. We still realize those people play a heavy impact on our lives. So other than that, enjoy your weekend, be blessed, be safe, and we will see you guys on Monday. Same time, same place.